Okay, so welcome to episode number 2 of this vlog. Again, like I said last time, I don't really know where this vlog is heading to, but the first one was well accepted on social media. So here we are at episode number 2. We have Adam Siegel, who's again a close friend of mine, lives not too far from me here in Ramat Beit Shemesh. He actually lives in Neve Shamir. And Adam has 2 companies. One is Mortgage Israel, and the other one is WirePay. And Adam will explain to you how he can benefit you as an Ola, somebody who's thinking about making Aliyah. So Adam, let's just get right into it. Again, welcome, and if you could just tell me a couple lines about yourself, where you're from, when did you make Aliyah, where you're currently living, and what was your greatest challenge, if you can, about making Aliyah?
Well, so first of all, I'm from Chicago, and we made Aliyah 14 years ago. Well, we lived in Miami first, and I might be the wrong person to ask this question to, because we actually had a really pretty simple Aliyah experience. You know, everything went smoothly. I think it was much easier than a lot of the horror stories people hear. Probably the biggest challenge, if you want to talk about that, was that my wife got attacked by 2 Arabs walking in the mountains. And
right.
Fortunately for us, and one of them was holding like a big Rambo knife. Fortunately for us, before we made Aliyah, she trained in martial arts, and she actually had a martial arts studio in Miami, so she was able to beat off the attackers. And then like a week later, I was driving home. It was like the first rain of the season, and a Jeep spiraled out of control down Road 38 and knocked me off the road.
I didn't know this one.
My car flipped up, was in a ditch. And it was like, if you remember the old A-Team episodes from like, how did the helicopter crash into the mountain? And like everybody walked out, and somehow I walked out of there. And then when the ambulance came and the police came, they're like, where was the guy in the car? I'm like, that's me. They're like, there's no way, it's not possible. Nobody gets out of that. So it was like within the first couple of months of making Aliyah, my wife got jumped by 2 terrorists, and I got, knocked off the road and came out of a smashed up car upside down. But after that, I just told Hashem, look, we're staying. Like, don't try to scare us away. We're here.
Right.
And B'li'ayin hara, since then, it's been pretty smooth.
Okay, so those are pretty incredible stories. From what I understand, you were not in mortgages or money transferring before you made Aliyah. What did you do before you made Aliyah?
My background is really in Jewish education. I was a Rebbe, and I was the director of a couple Jewish schools in America. But I always say, and this is really true, that when we made Aliyah, like, I knew everything about borrowing money. Those were the days before Florida started the vouchers for the free schooling. So we were always in debt. We were always broke. And like, I had to borrow money every 2 weeks to make payroll. So when I came here, it was just a question of, learning. I knew I wanted to go into business. I didn't feel that I was capable of disciplining Israeli children in a school. So I went into this business, and I had the background already, and number 1, explaining things to people from being a teacher, and number 2, knowing how to borrow money. So I just went into this industry.
What a great story. That's what happens when you make Aliyah. Things just like kind of fall into place. You have to have a lot of bitachon and siyata d'shmaya. So what made you go into mortgages? How did you start these companies? Let's talk a little bit about that.
So I can't even say that I'm sure everybody has these things in their lives where you don't even know how something happened. Like, my wife said, we could only make Aliyah if you have some kind of job. You have to have something to do. So I was teaching at Bar Ilan University. But I knew that, teaching is nice and it's enjoyable, but it wasn't gonna pay the bills. So I'm like, I have to do something. And I don't know why. I saw an advertisement for Mortgage Israel, and I'm like, I gotta work for that company.
Wow.
And I said to my wife, like, I should go company, and she's like, you don't know anything about mortgages. I'm like, I don't know, something about it. It feels right. Like, I feel like I could do it. So I just called them up. At that time, it was a very small company, and there was like 2 or 3 brokers in the company, and I just said, hey, I think I could do this, and would you like to meet? And they ended up training me, and then here I am today.
It's funny because before I became a realtor, I was kind of looking for something, and I called you up to be I was like, hey Adam, maybe I should become a mortgage broker, and you talked me out of it. But I think that that kind of put me into where I am now in real estate, because had I been a mortgage broker, I don't know that I would have been happy dealing with the banks the way you do on a daily basis. I'm happy to deal with
Right.
my incredible clients.
Well, by the way, I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember our conversation when you asked me about going into real estate?
I
don't know
vaguely
if you
remember this.
So I remember that you asked me about it, and you were a little bit in doubt. You said, well, there's so many people in real estate. Maybe I should go into real estate, but like, there's so many people in it. And I remember saying to you, Donny, there's so many people in it, but there's not that many honest, good people in it. If you go into real estate, you're going to be really, really successful. I remember telling you that.
I do remember. Now you said that, I actually just got chills. I do remember you said that. And yeah, I think you were definitely one of the promoters of me going into real estate. Amazing. So I guess let's talk a little bit about what makes your mortgage company, Mortgage Israel, and let's talk a little bit about WirePay. What makes you different than other mortgage brokers? I know from working, from you on a one-on-one basis, I've actually had one mortgage broker in the last couple of years. He called me up to get some of my business, and I told him, well, I'm working with Adam Siegel, and his response to me was, if you're working with Adam Siegel, continue working with Adam Siegel, because he's the king of mortgages. So what makes you the king of mortgages? What do you do differently than other mortgage brokers do? Other than that wonderful smile of yours.
Yeah, thank you. No, I just think that, but probably everybody in their field of expertise could probably know that it's just so much of any success in any endeavor is just the desire to get something done. It's just saying, listen, I'm not going to stop until I get the job done right. And I don't know if we're any smarter than anybody, or any more talented, or have any better technology. Probably not. I think it's just number one, a question of having the motivation and the perseverance to say, this person needs a mortgage, we're going to get it for them, and whatever the obstacles are. And Baruch Hashem, the banks here and the government put some obstacles sometimes in your way, and we just say, we're just going to deal with it. And when you treat every mortgage as if it's your own personal mortgage, you say, listen, what would I do if it was my, I wouldn't stop. I'm not going to live under a bridge. I'm going to find a way to get into that house. And if you take that approach for your clients, then you just find a way to get things done.
In one sentence, what would be your secret sauce?
Hope it's not a run-on sentence, but I would say treat people the way you want to be treated, and don't stop until the job is done.
Okay, that's pretty much how I view my real estate business as well, and that's key. That's definitely key. I guess one success story of maybe a challenging case that you were working on, that you were able to help somebody from abroad buy a home here that was like a little bit more difficult than the rest. I think people want to hear about they're coming to Israel. They really don't know what to expect. Anything can happen. They've heard lots of different stories that you helped somebody who was making Aliyah that had a challenging case. And how did you overcome that? And how
fear of putting people to sleep. We could do a different one for like people like insomniacs and footslards who want to hear stories about mortgages in Israel. Making Aliyah from England, he had income, and he knew that he could afford the mortgage, but he didn't really have any documented income. And the banks here have to look at documented income. So the challenge of the mortgage broker is, well, let's say, I always want to know, first of all, that the people that I'm getting a mortgage for actually could afford the mortgage, whether the bank will give them the loan or not. You don't want someone to take a loan they can't afford. So I knew this guy could afford the mortgage, but because of the way his income was structured, there was actually no way to prove that he really had the income. And he really needed to get this house, and they had a special needs child. They still have a special needs child. And there was a lot of pressure for them to get this house by a certain date and close the mortgage. And no banks wanted to lend him any money. And if you saw his tax returns and you saw his documents, you probably wouldn't lend him any money either. So, part of any business, and it sounds funny to say this, but you have to have relationships in any business. So there's a certain banker that I know, an Israeli banker, who's just obsessed with the royal family, loves the queen. Right? This is the day before the queen died, obviously.
Wow.
The king, just like, everything. And I said, I told the guy, I said, listen, a lot of times, we as the mortgage brokers speak to the bankers on your behalf. But I think that if this lady hears your British accent, she'll just be so enthralled, and you'll tell her stories about England.
Oh my God, I love it.
She won't even look at your income. And it sounds so crazy. I said, just speak to her. Talk to her about like Buckingham Palace. And I put them directly, on the phone. And then I brought him to meet her, and I sat next to him, and she's like, "Yeah, okay." Like, she didn't, the income didn't even come up. I'm like, how did that even happen? It's just sometimes, you have the relationships, you know how to put the right people together at the right time. And obviously, you daven to Hashem that he should help you and help your clients. And it ends up working out.
That's a great story. Can you tell us a couple differences between the mortgage process, between getting a mortgage in the U.S. or abroad versus getting a mortgage here in Israel?
Yeah, so I think the biggest difference that people find is that in the maximum that a bank is allowed to lend here is 75%. So you could be, sometimes people will say, I make $10 million a year. Do you know how much Chase Bank lent me? Like, that's very nice. But here, the government tells the banks, you cannot lend more than 75% of the value of a certain property. So that's one thing that people kind of find challenging. And of course, we have to find solutions and work with people, but that's one basic difference that people encounter. Another major difference is that it's very rare to have like a refinancing frenzy in Israel like you have in America. You have fixed rate loans here the same way you have in America. And you can take your loan all fixed. A lot of people sometimes call and say, I heard you can't take a fixed rate loan. I say, no, it's not true. You could actually take a fixed rate loan, but if you want to repay or refinance that loan when interest rates in the market are lower than what you have, so then you have to pay a penalty. So the banks sort of discourage you from refinancing. So when you go into a mortgage here, you have to take a little bit more into account in the sense of, what are my plans for potentially prepaying? Do I want to have some variable portions to my loan so that I could prepay them if I need to? And so some of those things, it's not rocket science, but it's things that people have to have a conversation with someone who knows what they're doing first before they take a mortgage here.
And I can tell you personally that you're very helpful in helping somebody decide, how much fixed, how much variable, and how to structure the loan, and that's very helpful. I really just have a couple other questions, and then we'll wrap it up. The interest rates recently have gone up. I don't want to say they've gone through the roof, because historically they're still considered low. Compared to what they were like 20, 30 years ago. They're still low, but how do you see mortgage taking? I don't know the right word. Mortgage applications in the recent months or weeks compared to what it was a year or two ago.
So it's an interesting question. In the broader Israel market, mortgages are down a lot, and the banks are sort of getting desperate a little bit because the number of deals have gone down. That being said, in the Anglo areas and in specifically the religious Anglo areas, there hasn't really been that much of a drop off. There's still a lot of people buying. You could look at your background, but you don't really see all the cranes in the picture behind you. But there's a lot of building going on in Ramat Beit Shemesh, and there's in our types of areas, and so it hasn't really impacted the market so much. And one of the interesting things, and this is unique since I've been doing this and probably historically, is that fixed interest rates in Israel are lower now by quite a bit than fixed interest rates in America. So people in America now are seeing interest rates, between 6 and 7%. You can come to Israel and get a fixed 30-year loan for less than 5%. So on the one hand, even though rates have gone up, but if you're dealing with the Anglo market, mortgages actually seem cheap right now. And it's actually a good time, relatively speaking, for people to buy, at least, relative to mortgages around the world.
Excellent. Adam, I really thank you for coming on this vlog, on this adventure. Again, like I said, I don't know where it's going, but this is the second episode, and I think this is fantastic information for people looking to make aliyah, looking to buy homes in Israel. Can you tell us what's the best way if people wanted to contact you, ask you questions? I know you're extremely accessible. I know that you're always able to answer questions very quickly. People who are abroad or in Israel, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Well, they could, I don't know if we could post on the little screen.
We're going to do that at the end. We're going to have that too.
But the best is really just to send me an email, Siegel@mortgageisrael.com.
Okay.
Or, if anybody asked, they could reach out to you. They could, stalk me on my website, mortgageisrael.com. The one other thing I just wanted to mention very, very quickly, 10 seconds is that we also have this other company, Wire
Right.
Pay Israel. So when people need to bring over money to do large transactions for real estate, we also help them for a much better price than the bank with doing foreign exchange transactions.
Okay. And I know firsthand that you do an excellent job. Adam, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for giving us your time, and have a wonderful day.
Well, thank you for doing this, Donny. Bracha v'hatzlacha to you. Thanks for arranging this. Thank you for inviting me.